Whoosh! After seeing his opponent's appearance, the bloodthirst knight still didn't say anything. However, 2 dashes of red sword energy shot out from the mass of warrior energy that was surrounding him. Like 2 lightning bolts, they cut through the air and flew towards Faye. This is the bloodthirst sword energy, Khulud's combat technique. I have to warn everyone that you shouldn't try to block it if you are not at least a 5-star warrior. Matt Razy's voice sounded in everyone's ears. His tone was calm, and he was doing his usual casting job. At the same time, as if he didn't sense the danger, Faye didn't move at all. The sharp wind created by the 2 sword energy cut off a few of his black hair, and the crowd gasped. However, he suddenly reached out and grabbed onto the 2 bolts of sword energy. In the next second, the 2 sword energies turned into bloody mists and disappeared. Good. Breaking the energy with his bare hands. The king of Chambord's strength is impressive as well. Matt Razy squinted his eyes as he saw this. But this expression disappeared right away as he clearly commentated on the battle so more than 10,000 people in the crowd could understand what was happening. Shish! The air-piercing sounds didn't stop. After seeing his initial attacks didn't work, Khulud's face was still very calm. With his red bloody warrior energy around him, he waved his hands and several sword energy bolts that were even stronger than the 2 before appeared and dashed towards Faye. Like rain in a storm, these sword energies surrounded Faye, and the entire stage was turned to red as if it was a sea of blood. Faye wasn't scared. He stepped forward rather than backing off. With his hands at his back, he looked at the bloody sword energies that were dashing towards him with a cold expression on his face. Tink, tink, tink. Sparks flew everywhere, and it sounded like numerous weapons collided with each other. Waves of gasps sounded around the stage, but when the sword energies were about to hit Faye, a layer of a crystal-like shield appeared in front of Faye. Although it was really thin, it was really firm. All of the bloody sword energy was turned into bloody mists and soon disappeared as they collided with it. At the same time, a few sword energy bolts slid by Faye and dashed towards the outside of the stage. Shit! Save me! Ah ha ha! Help! Save me! The people who were watching the battle got frightened as they saw the powerful sword energies dashing towards them. Their faces paled since they were weak and weren't as powerful as Faye. If their bodies were hit by these energy bolts, they would die instantly. A section of the crowd became chaotic. At this moment, something occurred. Every stone that made the first sword testing stage lit up with a sky-blue light shining within. Then, a powerful magic surged as these lights merged like rivers going into the sea. These lights raised into the sky and made a half-spherical semi-transparent shell that covered the stage. It blocked all the sword energy, and no one in the crowd got injured. Magic Barrier. This was the 7-star water magic barrier, heavenly water screen that was set up here by the royal mage Capdevila. This magic barrier was a very famous water magic spell that offered a lot of protection. With this here, the residual power and forces from the 2 warriors would be kept inside, and the people in the crowd wouldn't be harmed. At the same time, the stage would be protected as well. After seeing this, the crowd calmed down and sat back down. On the stage, after both initiations failed, Khulud frowned as a murderous light appeared in his eyes. He finally made a move. He also took 1 step forward. With his bloody warrior energy around him, his body suddenly flashed through 30 meters and appeared at a spot that was 3 meters away from Faye. The bloody warrior energy filled the space around them. Khulud clenched his fist and punched out. Boom! It was loud like thunder. All of the bloody warrior energy was pulled by this punch. Together with this fist, the energy rushed toward Faye like the tsunami. The huge force created a ton of wind, and Faye's black hair and dark red cape fluttered. Both his long black hair and cape were at a right angle to his body. When faced with this huge, devastating strike, Faye's response was simple. He stepped out. He punched out. Although this punch wasn't as fancy as Khulud's where he pulled in all the red warrior energy around, it had a pure crystal-like force around it. Boom! Like a hot knife piercing into butter, the redness in front of Faye exploded and shattered. Bam! The 2 fists collided with each other. At that moment, time and space seemed to have taken a pause. Nothing explosive or magical that the crowd thought would occur didn't occur. Everything was so calm that it looked like nothing happened. The two fists were right on each other. There was no surge of power. As everyone was surprised, something occurred. Waves of lights were sent out like someone dropped a rock into a calm lake. Clear lights mixed with redness struck onto the stage and the magic barrier round after round. And the magic barrier lit up even more as if it was trying its best to hold this force in it. As the magic barrier got bluer, the lights shone even brighter. Half of the sky was lit up, and the crowd heard a sound of water flowing. The explosive force that everyone was waiting for appeared. Although they knew they were being protected by the level 7 magic barrier and the force on the stage won't get to them, the people in the crowd still started sweating and shouting out in fear. On the stage, the red figure flashed and returned to where he was standing before. As the red energy and dust settled, both parties were standing at their initial spots without any wounds on their bodies. Khulud still had the red warrior energy surrounding him, and Faye was still standing there with hands behind his back and his cape fluttering in the wind. From the look of it, nothing changed. What happened? Who won? The crowd was confused to what happened after that one impressive encounter. They were all quiet and were waiting for an explanation. Most of the people here were 1- or 2-star warriors. They were weak and didn't have much understanding of power. For them, they didn't catch what happened after the explosion, and they couldn't tell exactly who had the upper hand. In the VIP area, this King Alexander is interesting. He didn't show any signs of weakness when facing the 7th Executive Knight. I'm not sure how long he can last in this duel. A man like this is worthy enough for our Dean family to take in. The future leader of Dean family took off his eagle mask and thought. Not too far from him, Beyoncé of the Beeg family did show anything on her cold and elegant face, but the leader of Beeg family patted his thighs and shouted, "Nice!" People around him looked at him and thought, who exactly is he rooting for? In this first round, King of Chambord and the Bloodthirst Knight are evenly matched. Matt Razy's voice sounded again. The crowd finally heard the person who they wanted to hear from, and no one doubted his comments. This strange and mysterious man who loved gold and wine had judged more than 100 duels like this and never made a single mistake. A lot of people were surprised. They didn't expect that the King of Chambord could actually hold up against Khulud, who had such a vicious name. Although the news that the King of Chambord defeated the 10th Executive Knight Chris Sutton at Dual Tower Mountains were passed around the campsites, some people still didn't believe it. Also, the 10th Executive Knight was young and had just gotten promoted. He had limited experience and wasn't a 6-star warrior yet. However, Khulud on the other hand was a warrior from the generation before Faye, and he had been a 6-star warrior for a long time. His name was known around the Empire, and he had been through numerous battles. After comparing, most people bet on Khulud to win. And to a lot of people, Khulud would win this duel easily. The only thing that they weren't sure about was how many rounds this young king can go with Khulud. This was the question that almost everyone wanted to know. However, Matt Razy, who had never made an error before, said the young King of Chambord matched up to Khulud in the first round. Could the King of Chambord be this powerful already? This was the only question on people's mind. On the stage. Not bad, not bad. You are worthy of my time, King of Chambord. Your strength didn't disappoint me. The Bloodthirst Knight, who was covered in blood energy, nodded as a strange light flashed through his eyes. Faye loosened the tie on the cape, and his cape flew into the sky like a red cloud. He then stretched his neck and laughed. Thanks for your compliment. But if this is all you got, you have disappointed me big time, Mr. Executive Knight. Although they didn't speak loudly, their conversation was still clearly sent into the crowd's ear via the special magic devices. Humph! How dare you? The 2nd Executive Knight sneered. He is tired of living. Both the 4th and 5th Executive Knight also got mad. Although the 10 Executive Knight weren't on the same page, if someone looked down on one of them, it was equivalent to looking down on all of them. Since these 3 Executive Knights weren't friendly towards Faye in the beginning, they became even more furious. The 3rd, 6th and 8th Executive Knights looked at each other and shook their head helplessly. It is hard to actually like a man like this king, they thought. After the crowd heard this, they got very noisy. Since the establishment of Zenit, Faye wasn't the first one who said this out loud. However, all the other people were thrown into the prison, and no one had ever walked out of the prison of the Imperial Night Palace alive. This time, the King of Chambord challenged the dignity of the Executive Knights. In the VIP area, the expression on the mage genius Dean Cazzola became very interesting. On the other side, Big Beyoncé's cold expression cracked as a confirming smile appeared. It looked like a little girl found her favorite toy. It's him. He is the King of Chambord. About 500 meters to the south of the stage, the young King of Byzantine was so excited that his face turned red. When the two were fighting, he wasn't able to see their faces clearly. Now after they stopped, the young king couldn't believe what he was seeing. The one who saved his fiancée from the Blood Edge mercenary group and increased his strength was the super-powerful warrior King of Chambord, who was recently getting a lot of fame. The young king was shocked and overjoyed to have found this out. So the King of Chambord is just as young as me. After seeing the disdainful looks from the surrounding people, he stopped screaming and sat back down. However, he pondered to himself, I heard that after the King of Chambord inherited the throne, the key ministers of the kingdom had seized most of the power. He had to play dumb to fool everyone, and he eliminated all of his enemies after he became strong enough. Our fates are so similar. King of Chambord, he is like my idol that the gods made for me, and my teacher. I shouldn't be depressed and give up. I have to be like him and regain control of my kingdom. Soon, the crowd around the stage got really quiet. Among these people, some of them were excited, some of them were shocked, some of them were planning the next step, and some of them were closing their eyes to feel the residual power in the air to improve their understanding. However, none of them noticed a weak king of a weak affiliated kingdom had set his life goal. This was the moment that a terrifying king made his first transformation. On the stage, a sense of anger flashed through the red eyes of Khulud. It then disappeared as he shook his head. You are a good talker, but that won't help you. If you want to use that to disturb my mentality, you don't need to worry. King of Chambord, you will know the difference between us soon. As soon as he finished, he moved. His bloody warrior energy surged and covered the entire stage. As if the blood mist covered the area like a sea, both of their figures completely disappeared into it. No one was able to tell where they were. Wow! It is one of Khulud's key power moves, Cloud-Piercing Blood Sea. The red bloody warrior energy mixed with his murderous spirit forms a force field within which the opponent's spirit will be crushed. This is a blow to one's mentality. For people who weren't as stable and firm on their beliefs, their soul might be even crushed. Matt Razy was also in this blood sea, but he didn't seem to be affected at all. His voice still sounded in everyone's ear. He had a ton of knowledge, and he analyzed and explained the situation to everyone clearly. Oh ho! Something unexpected happened. The King of Chambord isn't affected at all. It seems like the blood mist can't get close to him at all. A circular area with a 3-meter radius around him is clear from this attack. Khulud moved. Like a phantom, he is able to move freely in here and can't be caught. A dying man's cry sounded from within the blood sea. Khulud's red blood sword energies hid in the sea and attacked from various angles. It is hard to defend against it was crushed. The red sword energies finally shattered the transparent power shield around the King of Chambord. The King of Chambord is facing a ton of danger? What? Unbelievable. He opened his eyes. The King of Chambord, who had his eyes closed, finally opened them. God, what am I seeing? He crushed all the sword energies with one of his hands. Are his hands made from metal? The King of Chambord moved. The huge transparent fist mark. It crushed the blood mist sea. The thick blood mist covered the stage, and only a few master warriors were able to see what was going on. However, Matt Razy's words let everyone, who wasn't able to see the battle, picture what was going on. The images were drawn out in everyone's mind. As Matt Razy finished speaking, the mist on the stage slowly dispersed. Now, without the man's comments, even the weakest warriors there knew that the King of Chambord easily beat Khulud's famous technique. How? Khulud was shocked. Before this battle, there were also other warriors who broke this technique before. However, those people were much more powerful than he was, and those people were very experienced fighters. And even those people didn't break it as fast as this king. Nothing is impossible. If you know what I've been through, you will know that this level of bloodiness to me is nothing. In the Diablo world, Faye had experienced a lot of killing and massacre. What he had been through could be described as a living hell. Just in the map of Rogue Encampment alone, places like the moor and the graveyards were full of much more terrifying and horrible scenes that one couldn't even imagine. Numerous people who were tortured by demons and monsters to death, and their broken remains were everywhere. Faye also went through those places and killed numerous demons. After experiencing those, Khulud's cloud-piercing blood sea couldn't shake Faye at all. My patience is coming to an end, Mr. Executive Knight. If you don't have anything else up your sleeves, this battle is about to be over. An impatient expression appeared on Faye's face. The reason Faye accepted this battle was to get more experience facing master warriors in order to improve the techniques that he created. However, the pressure Khulud brought to Faye was even less than the Golden Sun Knight back at the Dual Tower Mountains. Faye was seriously disappointed. After hearing the repeated mocking from his opponent, the Bloodthirst Knight got really upset. You rotten dog. Okay, great. You successfully made me mad. Anger burned in the red eyes as Khulud said, I wanted to leave you alive, but you have to die now. Tink. A crisp yet violent sword cry sounded. Khulud flipped his wrist and grabbed onto a huge strange sword with saw teeth lining the edges. It looked like a huge chainsaw. A strange red light flashed on its body, and a nose-piercing smell also came from it. As soon as the crowd saw the weapon, they almost saw thousands of prisoners begging for their lives. It was obvious that this knight had an item similar to a space storage ring, and this sword was in there before. Faye smiled. Things were getting a little bit more interesting. This is the executive sword that belonged to the 7th Executive Knight, and its name is Desire for Blood. According to legend, it can communicate with the Hell. It is the sword that was gifted to the Imperial Night Palace by Emperor Yasin when he established the kingdom. Haha. The real battle is about to begin. Are you ready? Matt Razy's excited voice sounded in everyone's ear. Faye also moved his body. He didn't summon his swords that belonged to the set items Bulkathos. Instead, he waved his hands in the air, and a pair of light metal gloves appeared on his hands. Dense metal scales and vicious back hooks added to the menacing look of the gloves, and the strange and complicated design for the knuckles displayed its impressiveness. It was the level 6 crafted item from the Diablo world, 8 Death's Disguise. We shall settle this with one strike. Get ready, Mr. Executive Knight. Whoosh! The huge chainsaw-like sword that was now floating in front of Khulud seemed to be dragged by an invisible force. It started to spin rapidly as its teeth tore through the air. The high-pitched scream of the sword made tens of thousands of people in the crowd cover their ears as if an unknown beast had just roared. Something strange occurred. Like a whale that sucked away the water, all the blood, mist, and energy around the stage were all sucked to the blade, and the blade was covered by a layer of red flames. These flames looked bloody, as if even space itself was about to be burned. As you wish. I will wipe your existence out of this world with this one strike. I will let those people who dare to challenge the Executive Knights to know what they would be getting into. Advanced combat technique, Hell's Ode to Blood. Khulud suddenly grabbed onto the handle of the sword, and all the bloody flames instantly covered the knight as well if he had oil on his body. A red light flashed as Khulud stomped the ground and dashed towards Faye. Although the ground of the stage was protected by the magic array, spiderweb-like cracks appeared in the area where he was standing. The knight's body surpassed the limit of space and time as he instantly appeared above Faye and chopped down onto Faye's head. A huge red sword that was made from warrior energy covered the blade, and a ton of mysterious patterns was covering it. After seeing this, Faye's expression became a little more serious. This sword was made from pure warrior energy, and it had emitted an immense pressure. Although the body of the sword looked vague, it had magic arrays on it already. Upon a closer look, Faye already sensed a bit of the rule of nature in it. This advanced technique was impressive, It was far more powerful than the Golden Sun Knight's Gold Lance Tsunami Strike. Haha, not bad. As Faye laughed, his long black hair fluttered in the wind as he stomped on the ground as well. The power of a level 40 barbarian exploded as his body shot out like a bullet. He punched out more than 50 times in the blink of an eye, and that lightning-like speed was beyond a regular people's sensing ability. To them, it felt like Faye punched out 50 times spontaneously as if he had 50 fists. The 50 fist marks seemed to combine together in the air, and every single pore and vein was visible on this huge transparent fist mark. This fist mark looked spectacular. The fist mark was about the size 10 meters from the index knuckle to the pinky knuckle. The simple fist shape gave people the feeling that this fist grabbed onto the essence of a punch. It looked like it could turn into hundreds of thousands of variations in a second. Sky Frost Fist, covering the sky, Faye shouted as this fist mark flew across the sky like the will of a god. At that moment, a scene appeared that no one witnessing this couldn't forget in their lifetime. The transparent fist mark flew in the air like it was about to create a hole in the space. The red sword chopped forward like it was about to divide the world in half. This moment finally came. At the first sword testing stage in the campsite outside of St. Petersburg, under the Moro Mountains, everyone held their breath as they witnessed the clash between the lively fist mark and the red sword that was more than 100 meters long. Boom! 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 A series of explosions sounded like a continuous thunder. An eye-piercing white light appeared in the very center, and invisible energy waves were sent into the surrounding like a nuclear bomb. These energies smashed into the magic barrier waves after waves, and the protective shield made by magic powers shivered. Dust and cracks appeared on the stage as if it was about to collapse any time. This was the most intense collision since the beginning of the battle. This was also the collision that would determine the outcome of the battle. Everyone was watching. Everyone was nervous as their muscles tensed up. Everyone didn't know what was about to happen next. There was only the sound of explosion that could be heard in the entire world. Everyone's heart seemed to stop bumping. Crack! A light crackling noise was heard. Although it was very quiet, it sounded louder than a huge bell to the crowd. It knocked on everyone's mind as they all stood up and stared at the stage that was 50 meters tall with full concentration. Their breathing stopped, and their minds went completely blank. For that moment, it seemed like time around the stage froze. Soon, everyone knew where the crack came from. The result of the collision was clearly displayed in front of everyone, in the air. The huge red sword with magic arrays on it had a thin white crack on it. That was where the fist mark struck it. Then, like it was slow motion, the crack started to expand to other places like a spider web, until finally the entire sword was cracked. Bam! As a muffled noise sounded, the huge red sword collapsed into numerous pieces. It broke. Khulud lost. The bloodthirst knight who almost everyone thought would win lost. After breaking the sword, the huge transparent fist mark still had a ton of forces. It went up in the air and struck Khulud, who was still in the air and couldn't dodge instantly. The huge transparent fist mark covered the 7th executive knight inside of it. A huge blood mist appeared in the sky as if there was a red cloud. Bam! A figure that was covered in blood flew back and smashed into the sky blue-colored magic barrier that was at the edge of the stage. Khulud was forced to take on the remaining power of Sky Frost Fist, and blood shot out of his wounds like fountains. Severe visible injuries appeared on his body, and his limbs broke so much that his white bones could be seen by the crowd. Lost! The 7th executive knight, whose name deterred 250 affiliated kingdoms for more than 20 years, lost completely. The man that could be considered one of the top warriors was destroyed in a crushing manner. Bam! As if all his life energy left his body, Khulud's body fell to the ground after smashing into the wall-like magic barrier. Blood stained the stage and flowed in the cracks between the stones like a river. The duel is over. The winner is King Alexander from Chambord. Matt Razy's voice soon sounded in everyone's ear, and this announcement made everyone feel like they are dreaming. It didn't feel real at all. At the same time, the flashing magic barrier also disappeared. Everything under the sky was quiet. A long-lasting silence. "How dare you hit him so harshly?" An angry shout shouted as three figures dashed onto the stage from the VIP area. Everyone felt like their eyes blurred, and three powerful figures were already standing on the stage. They surrounded Faye, and the second executive knight said with anger flashing in his murderous eyes, "How dare you? You only need to win in the duel, but you attack to kill. King of Chambord, do you really think that the Imperial Night Palace couldn't fix you? Arrest him and throw him into the prison." The fourth and fifth executive knights said as their warrior energy started to surge around them. The way they looked at Faye reminded the crowd of police looking at a criminal. It suddenly got noisy around the stage. Loud chatter and murmurs sounded around the stage like waves in the ocean. Many people didn't expect this to happen after the duel. The fact that the executive knights were doing this to the winner of the duel screamed corruption. It was obvious that they were using this as an excuse to deal with Faye for personal matters. Booing noises sounded from around the stage soon after. "Humph!" The second executive knight sneered, and the air around the stage got cold. The people who were making noises instantly quieted down. Although they weren't happy about this, no one dared to challenge these knights. Most of them were from affiliated kingdoms, and they were used to obeying the orders from the Imperial Night Palace. Even the people who were from noble families and wanted to recruit Faye into their group decided to wait and watch for now. "Surrender!" The fourth executive knight reached for Faye's chest. "You want to die?" Faye sneered. He wasn't afraid at all. He punched out, and the executive knight also punched out. In a second, their fists met numerous times, and the fourth executive knight was knocked back for several steps as his face paled. He breathed heavily as he couldn't believe he lost that. The noises around the stage sounded again. Some younger and braver people were already cheering Faye on. The ruthless behaviors of the executive knights were making these people mad. "Stop!" Another shout sounded as three more figures appeared. The third, sixth, and eighth executive knight appeared on the stage and blocked the other three knights. "It is normal for people to overuse their power in duels. You don't have to get so upset over this." The third executive knight was actually on Faye's side. "Humph, I won't change my decisions. How dare this reckless man injure an executive knight of the Empire? He should be punished." The second executive knight didn't bother to change his stance. The third executive knight's face changed color. The meaning of the second executive knight's action was very clear. He wanted to destroy this new rising star. But since when did Faye offend the second executive knight? Could it because of Golden Sun Knight's defeat? It didn't seem plausible. Maybe other people didn't know, but the third executive knight knew that the two weren't that close. After all, Sutton was still an arrogant young man who had just become an executive knight. It was not possible that the second executive knight was looking to take revenge for Sutton. Then, there was the question. Did the feud lie? The third executive knight couldn't figure it out. But he knew that he had to save this young king. It was just because he liked this young man. The situation of the Empire needed him to. The undercurrents of the Empire were getting more and more complicated. As Emperor Yasin was getting older and older, the fight for the throne between the princes became more and more aggressive. All the noble families and ministers were using their best judgment to support one of the princes to get more resources for them in the future. On top of the internal matter, the enemy of Zenit, the Spartak Empire, had stacked their troops at the border and was ready to give Zenit a blow. At this chaotic time, a new 6-star young warrior could help the situation a lot. The king of Chambord was very young. He was only 18. A 6-star warrior who was only 18 was much more important than any other 6-star warrior. With this level of talent and improvement speed, the third executive knight was almost certain that this young king could break through the threshold of the star class and become the youngest moon class elite in the Empire. The Imperial Night Palace noticed Faye as soon as he defeated Sutton on the Dual Tower Mountains. The third executive knight and a few other knights who had similar vision watched Faye closely, and after they saw the result of this duel, they were more certain on the idea of cultivating the young king. That was why, despite the fact that he was facing the second executive knight who had a higher rank than him, he was still trying to help the young king by reasoning his way out. It is common for injuries to occur during duels. In my opinion, the king of Chambord has done no faults. We should quickly help the seventh executive knight heal up. the third executive knight said as he slowly moved in front of Faye to block the second executive knight's path. Humph! The third executive knight. Are you sure you want to go against me? The second executive knight sneered. He didn't say anything more, but his surging warrior energy was getting stronger and stronger. Like a wave, he was trying to push the third executive knight away. As the second executive knight moved, the fourth and the fifth executive knight also released their warrior energy. Like a huge mountain, their combined energy made the first sword-testing stage that lost the protection from the magic barrier shiver. It felt like the stage was about to collapse. You? The third executive knight's expression became gloomy. Behind him, the sixth and the eighth executive knight also stepped forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with the third executive knight. Together, the three of them also released their warrior energy. The invisible forces collided in the air viciously, and the colorful warrior powers lit up more and more on their body as the light-colored half of the sky. The crowd looked at each other as they didn't know what was happening. No one expected the duel would come to this stage. The 6 executive knights who came here to witness the duel self-divided into 2 groups and confronted each other. From the looks of it, they might start fighting very soon. Quick! Back off! Shiz, the executive knights are about to fight. Without the magic barrier, who can protect us? Any residual power will kill us all. Oh my God! How did things turn out this way? The tens of thousands of people watching this trembled. Like dogs who saw a dragon, they were shocked by the power that was being emitted. People who were closer to the stage felt weak in their legs and collapsed onto the ground. The people who could still move quickly started to rush away. Even the noble figures in the VIP area were quickly moving out of the area under the protection of guards. If the 6 executive knights actually started to battle, their area would be affected first with the magic barrier's protection. The only group of people who didn't move were the people in the magic carriages from the Holy Church and the cavaliers guarding it. They were silent and didn't get anxious at all. Haha! Great! I didn't expect to see another team fight following the duel. The #1 traveling poet in the Empire, Matt Razy, was excited to see this. He drank from his wine cup as he fanned himself. With wine on his beard, he watched everything up close as if he didn't feel the devastating forces from the 6 executive knights. But a loud buzzing noise sounded, and the sky-blue-colored magic barrier appeared again. Now, the terrified crowd finally stopped moving and turned back their heads. They looked back at the stage with craze in their eyes. If the 6 executive knights actually started fighting, it would be an insane battle. To them, this would be the opportunity of the lifetime to witness the fight that would be documented in history up close. How are you? Don't push me. The second executive knight had a violent and mad expression on his face. Although his face was covered by his mask, his eyes showed his emotions. Hee hee, you 3. Don't forget that you are no match to us. The 4th executive knight sneered at 3 of his peers in provocation. You can't be sure unless we test that. After thinking everything through, the 3rd executive knight didn't have the confused and angry look on his face anymore. He calmed down and didn't change his stance. Beside him, the other 2 executive knights also didn't change. Last warning, I don't want to fight you, so don't push me. Otherwise, the fame and honor of Imperial Night Palace would be stained by you 3. The 2nd executive knight said as he slowly clenched his fist and unleashed his fire element warrior energy to the max. The 3rd executive knight didn't move. With a mocking smile, he said, maybe the honor of the palace would be stained, but the ones who stained it won't be us. They were going at each other head-on. The battle could start at any second. At this moment, cough. Can I say something? Faye, who was silent, coughed and drew everyone's attention at this moment. After he saw everyone looking at him, he slowly walked up as he rubbed his chins. Then, he patted the 3rd executive knight's shoulder like an old friend as he said with a smile, Mr. Executive Knight, you are drawing attention from me? The 3rd executive knight looked at Faye with a confused expression. Oh? Don't know what I mean. The executive knights of the Empire fighting to the death in front of all affiliated kingdoms aren't something good for the Empire. Therefore, bro, just let me handle this. After hearing this, everyone was shocked. Are you sure? The third executive knight woke up from the shock and asked with an earnest expression. Of course, Fei said as he walked up and faced the three other executive knights. His expression was so calm that everyone admired him for his courage. You? After seeing the young king ignoring their efforts, the sixth and eighth executive knight sighed anxiously. The third executive knight shook his head and brought the two executive knights to the edge of the stage. They were just going to watch the king of Chambord handle this on his own. Okay. So you are willing to go to prison? The second executive knight signed in relief. He didn't really see this 18-years-old boy as a threat. Although this boy defeated the seventh executive knight, it didn't mean that the young king could escape from him and the other executive knights who were on his side. Fuck you, dumbass. Fei shouted as he suddenly punched out. No one expected the king of Chambord to start attacking. With a shocking force in his shout, the most terrifying memories within these three executive knights' minds were awakened. This unreasonable and unforeseeable fear instantly filled their consciousnesses. Because of it, all three executive knights froze at this critical moment. During the battle with the high-level warriors, 1 second could determine the outcome of many things. The attacker's initiative, for example. Boom! 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 3 loud explosions sounded and almost broke the eardrums of people in the crowd. With a blank expression, more than tens of thousands of people watched the second, fourth, and fifth executive knight getting knocked away by Fei's punches like cannonballs. How? How dare you? As soon as the second executive knight landed on the ground 30 meters away, an angry and shocking expression appeared on his face. He didn't expect the king of Chambord, who was like a sheep in his eye, to attack him like a maniac. Kill him! The fourth executive knight shouted angrily with a visible deep fist mark on his chest armor. He dashed back towards Fei even faster as his green warrior energy lit up around him. Without any mercy, it looked like this man was trying to kill Fei with this one strike. Haha! You guys are funny. Why can't I attack? Yuck! You 3 idiots. Since you want to break the rules of the duel and frame me, then I will beat your arrogant faces up, so you won't dare to show yourselves in front of me ever again. Fei laughed and, as if his voice was filled with magical power, all the people in the crowd felt their blood start boiling. In the center of the spotlight, Fei took a step forward in the face of the 3 strong enemies, and his long black hair fluttered in the wind. As soon as he stepped on the ground, a loud explosion sounded as if a huge mountain fell onto the stage. The entire stage that was 50 meters high started to shake, and the level 40 barbarians' force was completely unleashed. The pure release of physical force made the atmosphere 10 meters around him very dense, and various colored lights appeared on his body as a complete set of armor appeared. With the ancient and magical sensations surging on the armor, Fei's strength went up another level. A huge phantom that was more than 100 meters tall appeared behind Fei like a totem. This figure looked very vague, but from the rough edges, people could tell that this was a huge muscular golden figure who had a full-on beard. Like a pillar that separated the land and the sky, the figure stood quietly behind Fei. However, it released a tiny bit of its power, and this power was enough to block out the light like an ancient barbarian lord. Sky Frost Fist. Covering the sky. A huge transparent crystal-like fist mark thrusted out and collided with the fourth executive knight who was coming at Fei. After the fist mark and the man paused in the air for a split second, a loud noise sounded as shock waves were sent in all directions. Although the fist mark cracked, the fourth executive knight also lost balance as he flew back like lightning as blood spurted out of his mouth. He had injured the fourth executive knight with just one strike. This is the real strength of the king of Chambord? People thought. At the same time, second executive knight and fifth executive knight were already dashing towards Fei with magnificent momentum like 2 beasts covered in vicious armor. The second executive knight's body was upside down as he struck downwards from the sky with fire element warrior energy around his palms. The fifth executive knight simply kicked at Fei forcefully. At this critical moment, Fei didn't have the time to consolidate the crystal fist mark. However, without a change on his face, he punched out. One of his fists smashed into the second executive knight's palm, while the other one collided with the fifth executive knight's feet. Boom! Boom! The huge noise made some people in the crowd start bleeding from their ears, as waves of devastating forces were passed through Faye's arms continuously. For that moment, even the Moro Mountains seemed to be shaking. After another round of loud noises, the stone floor under Faye's feet cracked even with the protection of the magic barrier. Everything under Faye's knees was driven into the ground, and dust and chipped stones flew into the air and blocked everyone's vision. Three powerful forces that were beyond the crowd's imagination were colliding and eating at each other ferociously. Various colored warrior energy shot in all directions like fireworks exploding in the magic barrier. In the short moment, all three of them seemed to achieve an equilibrium. At this moment, a figure suddenly dashed into the dust like a phantom, and his sword lightly whistled as it dashed towards Faye's heart, with a sword energy shooting out of sword even faster. It was the fourth executive knight who rejoined the battle. The defeat of that one encounter shamed him, and he was in a frenzied state. All he wanted to do now was to put a huge hole in Faye's body while he was busy dealing with the other two executive knights. Fuck off! At this moment, Faye roared as another set of forces exploded from his body. He forced the second and fifth executive knight off of him. Although Faye's body sunk into the ground more because of the impulse, he suddenly tilted his body and dodged this attack as he stared at the fourth executive knight closely. Although he survived the attack, the sharp sword energy wounded his shoulder, and blood spurted out of it. However, thanks to his level 6 unique items from the Diablo world and his barbarian passive skill that increased his defense, this level of injury posed minimal effect on him. All of this was under Faye's calculation. Then, roar! Battle cry that belonged to barbarians revealed itself to the world. This terrifying shout deceased enemies' defense ability and damage. Under this shout, the fourth executive knight, who was feeling unlucky that his sneak attack missed and was about to reorganize himself for another attack, suddenly felt like he was under the envelopment of a strange force. As if something on him was slowly rotting away, his body stiffened a little subconsciously. Then, he witnessed how the king of Chambord's fists smashed right into his chest. Puffy! A mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth as if his mouth was shooting out a bloody arrow. Without any doubt, his body that was in the heavy armor flew back like a metal ball, and two deep fist marks were clearly imprinted on the front of his chest. After he fell onto the ground 60 meters away, he tried to stand up. However, he staggered and finally half-kneeled onto the ground as blood continued to spurt out of his mouth as if these blood were free, making the fourth executive knight of the Empire to lose the ability to continue fighting with one strike. Roar! At this moment, Faye roared again. But this time he was using the skill, A Shout. He used up all of the mana he had and slowed down the attack from the other two executive knights by a little bit. He smashed the ground with his palms, and he used that impulse force to push himself out of the ground and into the air. Sky Frost Fist. One strike to kill. In the air, Faye chugged down a bottle of mana potion, followed by attacking aggressively. He punched out more than 100 times within one breath, and everyone in a dozen punches would trigger the effect of the barbarian's passive ability Bash. All of these punches soon formed 6 huge crystal-like fist marks, and these 6 fist marks struck towards the two executive knights. Bam! 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 A series of loud noises resonated in the sky as the two executive knights were hit by the fist marks. Although these fist marks won't defeat the two executive knights, the effect of Bash contained the extra damage that was able to damage the two executive knights' body behind the armors. These fist marks interfered with the energy flow in the two executive knights' bodies, and the knockback effect of Bash did buy Faye more time. As long as Faye could separate the two executive knights, he was confident that he could defeat them one by one. In a few seconds, the outcome of these attacks were displayed. All of the people in the crowd gasped as they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They didn't expect the king of Chambord to suddenly attack the three executive knights, and it seemed like this famous young king was having an upper hand in this battle against the three very powerful executive knights. Having an upper hand in a 1 versus 3 battle? This result was completely different from the outcome people had in their minds. Even the 3rd, 6th, and the 8th executive knights were shocked. They all looked at Faye with an astonished expression as if they were looking at a monster. After looking at the second and fifth executive knights who were furious after getting knocked back, everyone knew that these three executive knights lost big time, even outside the actual outcome of the battle. All three executive knights attacked the king of Chambord, and they didn't get any advantage. Instead, the fourth executive knight was injured severely. Once this news got out, King Alexander of Chambord's name would instantly spread across the empire like a tornado. However, the king of Chambord, who was still on the stage, didn't seem like he was going to go easy on these executive knights. Like a bolt of lightning, he dashed towards the fifth executive knight as he attacked with both of his fists mercilessly. Sky Frost Fist, covering the sky. While in mid-air, Fei shouted as a crystal-like fist mark that was 1,000 meters across appeared in the sky. Fei punched out, and his fist pushed the fist mark, containing all the variations punched into the fifth executive knight. After the continuous battle, Fei got a lot more experience. His Sky Frost Fist got smoother, and he mastered 2 killer variations, covering the sky and 1 strike to kill. Covering the sky was the product of mastering the barbarian's pure physical force. Fei was now able to condense 50 punches into 1 fist mark, and this strike would hit the opponent like missiles. However, 1 strike to kill had the barbarian skill, Bash, mixed into it. It could increase the damage and knock the opponent back. However, since Fei's level 40 barbarian still wasn't at his peak, the damage wasn't there. That was why Fei didn't really kill either executive knights like the name suggested. Bam! The crystal-like fist mark smashed into the fifth executive knight, and the energy spilled in all directions. The crystal-like force instantly enveloped the entirety of the fifth executive knight. The executive knight wasn't a match with Fei in terms of physical strength, and he barely blocked the strike when his warrior energy wasn't flowing in his body freely. Like a punching bag, his body flew back in the air as he puked up mouthfuls of blood. Buzz! All the murmuring among the crowd got even louder. Tens of thousands of people from these affiliated kingdoms were shocked. They opened their mouths wide and let out strings of sounds with unknown meanings that was all that they can do to vent the surprise and fear in their minds. In the crowd, the young king of Byzantine was so excited that his body shivered. Powerful, unmatched, merciless, murderous spirit, reckless behavior. This is a real king, not only with powerful strength, but also an equally powerful heart. Compared with him, I'm a nobody, he thought. The young king was shocked as well. He knew if he was in Fei's position, he wouldn't dare to attack the executive knights. After witnessing this scene, he seemed to understand something. Learn. I need to learn from the king of Chambord. Everything, every single action of his resembles the presence of a king. On top of worrying for his idol, this little king of Byzantine, who no one paid attention to, had an unprecedented seed planted in his mind. On the stage, the strike covering the sky knocked the fifth executive knight, who was already at a disadvantage, away. But Fei didn't hesitate as a frenzy appeared in his eyes. He stomped on the ground as his body shot at the fifth executive knight like a cannonball, and his fists punched out repeatedly. As the air-piercing noise sounded, numerous crystal fist marks struck the fifth executive knight firmly. Boom! 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 Although the fifth executive knight was trying to turn the situation around, Fei was able to capture this great opportunity and beat this executive knight into the air like a sandbag. The fifth executive knight backed off as his blood spilled everywhere, but he soon reached the magic barrier. The violent crystal fist mark landed on his body like raindrops, and his green warrior energy was only able to help his body with alleviating some of the forces from the punches and nothing else. Although he tried to fight back, he couldn't do it. Damn it! Shit! A terrifying warrior energy exploded from afar. This time, the second executive knight, who was in a set of monster-like armor, finally woke up from the extra damage and knocked back effect of the one-strike-to-kill attack. A dragon-like roar sounded from his throat as the strange black warrior energy flames turned into various black snakes that were flickered their tongues as his body was completely enveloped. Oh, this is the second executive knight's most famous strike. Haha. Looks like he is really angry about this. Matt Razy was still wandering around as he drank the wine and lightly fanned himself with his golden feather fan. Although the golden wine cup in his hand looked small, to the point where a normal person could even chug it in one go, there was still the delicious smell of liquor coming from that cup. Matt Razy had drunk more than a barrel of wine since the beginning, but there was still drink in the cup. There were also a lot of explosions happening on the stage, but everything close around him was calm. His hair and robes were still naturally fluttering in the light breeze. Of course, before Razy finished, the energy around the second executive knight surged like crazy. Those black energy snakes screamed as they dashed towards Faye. Advanced combat technique, black flame snake's kisses. The second executive knight's figure was hidden in the black flames. Although no temperature could be felt on these snakes, even the ground that was protected by the magic barrier turned black. When the black snakes tuffed the sky-blue magic barrier, a series of cracking and sizzling noises sounded, as if the energy was eating away the barrier. It was really strange. As the dozens of black snakes flew in the air, they intervened with each other and formed a series of images. In the end, they turned into a huge symbol that looked like a drill head rotating at a high speed as it aimed phase back. The strike was impressive. No wonder it was the famous combat technique of one of the 10 executive knights. Before the strike arrived, Faye, who was still 30 meters away, felt an intolerable pain in his back, as if his muscles were about to be torn apart. Haha! Great! The third strike of Skyfrost fists. Faye didn't turn around and counterattack as everyone expected. He didn't stop attacking and pressuring the fifth executive knight. Faye suddenly punched out at a strange angle, and this fist mark traveled through all other fist marks. There was no way that the fifth executive knight could dodge it. When it hit, the fifth executive knight felt dizzy as if he lost control of his body. Now is the time, Faye thought as he used leap. He instantly appeared beside the fifth executive knight, grabbed onto the fifth executive knight's neck, and threw him out like a dirtbag. Looking from afar, it looked like the fifth executive knight was voluntarily taking on the black flame snake's kisses. The fifth executive knight, who lost control of his body, instantly opened his eyes big as his pupils contracted. On the other side, the second executive knight's pupils also contracted. Black flame snake's kisses was the second executive knight's proudest combat technique, and this technique was the reason why he had the second seat in the Imperial Night Palace. In the last 20 years, a lot had happened to the Imperial Night Palace, and a lot of masters were defeated by this technique. Even warriors who had similar power levels to the second executive knight lost to him after this technique. However, this almost secretive technique also had its flaw. It couldn't be taken back after being cast. After he unleashed it, there was zero chance that he could cancel it. If he really wanted to do it, the power of the technique would bite back at him mercilessly, and he would be injured by it severely. After all, the second executive knight didn't expect Faye would come up with such a dirty trick to counter this. He also didn't expect the fifth executive knight to fly towards the attack like an idiot. He knew the fifth executive knight knew the power of the strike, but he was really mad since it looked like the fifth executive knight was trying to block the attack for Faye voluntarily. Shit! The second executive knight couldn't do anything but to end the technique forcefully. Instantly, blood rushed up his throat and filled his mouth. His internal organs were injured by the black flame snake's kisses. However, such a rushed cancel wasn't effective. Although the rotating speed of the drill like snakes decreased, the residual power of it still dashed towards the fifth executive knight who looked defenseless. The residual power of the technique was still so powerful that the ear-piercing noise and the sparks in the air justified it. With the strike coming so close, the cracked magic armor of the fifth executive knight's body finally broke into little pieces under this terrifying tearing force. As the devastating black drill head was about to go into the fifth executive knight who just woke up from the dizziness and destroy him, changes occurred. A figure appeared in between the drill head and the fifth executive knight from an impossible angle and with impossible speed. With his hands on each side, a golden flame lit up and he grabbed onto the drill head and the fifth executive knight. This death trap was resolved. Boom! The residual power in the black flame snake's kisses was sent away, and the fifth executive knight fell onto the stage. It was really quiet on the stage. Around the stage, numerous eyes locked onto the figure that suddenly appeared in the battle. On the stage, the black warrior energy flame disappeared, and everything was visible again. With the golden fan, golden cup, and the golden robe, Matt Razy stood in the middle of the stage casually. "Hey, little guy. It's okay to beat these dumbasses to vent off your anger, but don't go overboard. It won't be good if anyone is killed here." Matt Razy smiled as he looked at Faye. "They are the ones who provoked me." Faye acted as if he was wronged and wasn't feeling great, but he was actually really surprised. Although he knew that this man was a master, he didn't expect him to have such an impressive strength. In fact, Matt Razy's strength was several times above Faye's estimations. Faye was sure that he couldn't stop the strike from the second executive knight and the fifth executive knight's body, and Matt Razy was able to do that easily. Not a single hair on Matt Razy's head got messy. To be honest, I don't like them too. However, little guy, you can't really kill them. Do you think 6-star warriors are easy to cultivate? They are not crops that you can just grow anywhere." Matt Razy zapped his mouth as he drank a bit more and tried to break it down for Faye. "The situation for the Empire is more complicated, and they are still needed. You have gained enough respect today, and you showed us what you got. Listen to my advice and stop here." "No problem, I will listen to you. But I'm afraid that they—" Faye didn't want to actually kill the 3 executive knights, so he said with hesitation as he looked at the 3 executive knights. "Humph. Today, the king of Chambord must die." Due to canceling the combat technique, blood had started dripping down from the second executive knight's lips. However, he didn't give Matt Razy any respect as he shouted the sentence out word by word. He took out 3 blue medicine balls from his storage space and threw one to the 4th and the 5th executive knight each. They all took the medicine, and the injuries on their bodies quickly recovered. After all, they were 6-star warriors, and the medicine worked really well with the help from their warrior energies. In 10 seconds, the majority of the injuries on their bodies were healed. These blue medicine balls were really precious as their effects were great. To a lot of warriors, each of the medicine ball represented another life. Even though the second executive knight status was really high in the Empire, he only had 5 of those medicine balls. Those were treated like treasures by him. He didn't even like other people looking at them. However, he was so infuriated by Faye today that he took out and used the 3 of them with the other 2 executive knights. Today, he was determined to arrest Faye and throw Faye into the Black Jail at the Imperial Night Palace from the perspective of the second executive knight. They lost because they underestimated Faye and let Faye take control of all the advantages in the fight. With a second chance, the second executive knight was sure that they wouldn't lose. After seeing this, Faye's murderous spirit appeared. Without cutting out the root problems, more and more troubles would appear one after another. After knowing that his opponents posed real threats, Faye wasn't going to hold back. Even if he killed the 3 executive knight, Faye was sure that he could find a way to not get punished. Faye shrugged at Matt Razy as he smiled to show that he was innocent. After seeing this, Matt Razy didn't try to stop it again. Instead, he laughed as he drank more wine. As another battle to the death was about to begin, a calm yet majestic voice sounded from the direction of St. Petersburg. "That's it, come back." After hearing this voice, the 2nd, 4th, and 5th executive knights' bodies all froze. Although surprise and unwillingness appeared in their eyes, they didn't hesitate to move. They roared, looked at Faye viciously, and then turned into 3 dashes of lights as they rushed back towards the Imperial Night Palace. This scene surprised everyone. Did some big person from the capital get involved? The crowd thought. Who could it be? With one sentence, the 3 executive knights who wanted to tear Faye into pieces fucked off and left the stage obediently. "Your Majesty, I'm afraid that they won't end here. Take care." The 3rd, 6th, and 8th executive knights who were standing by the edge of the stage walked up to Faye and said their farewells. As Faye stared at them with shock, they walked up to the 7th executive knight, Khulud, who was still unconscious. They carried Khulud as they dashed back at the Imperial Night Palace and disappeared. Instantly, the tense atmosphere was gone after that mysterious voice. For a brief moment, it was completely silent around the stage. Everyone in the crowd stared at this king as they felt very dizzy, as if their brains were shorted out. No one foresaw this situation. It got out of hand real fast. However, the king of Chambord surprised everyone as he beat 4 executive knights like dummies, If it wasn't for that mysterious voice, no one would know how this situation would end. At this moment, something unexpected happened. Boom! An indefensible force suddenly appeared from the direction of the capital like a meteor. That was the purest form of yellow earth element warrior energy. It wasn't using any combat techniques. From 4 kilometers away, it dashed towards the first sword testing stage. The target of this vast indefensible force was Fei, the king of Chambord. Fei's face changed color. This force wasn't something that his level 40 barbarian couldn't bear. What scared Fei the most was that he felt like his body couldn't dodge the attack after being targeted by it. The only option he had was to go against it. Whoosh! Mystic flames appeared in the air. Fei grabbed in the air, and 2 blades appeared in his hands. Bulkathos Sacred Charge and Bulkathos Tribal Guardian. As soon as the 2 blades appeared, a series of magical power flowed through his body. These set items offered Fei various buffs such as +2 levels on all skills, +200 accuracy, +20 fire damage, +25 defense. With these 2 blades, Fei's abilities increased a lot. Tink! Tink! The 2 blades danced in the air, and various marks were left in space. The body of the sword roared as the tinking noise resonated in the sky. A red and ancient flame suddenly appeared out of nowhere and formed a series of flame swords. Like arrows shot out by a formation of archers, they all dashed towards the force that was coming from St. Petersburg. Fei also instantly activated Double Swing, which was a key skill of the barbarian. His blades could either attack 2 targets or 1 target twice simultaneously. This skill offered Fei the ability to act like 2 level 40 barbarians. In other words, Fei was able to instantly deal double the damage. With the help of the set items, Fei bashed out flame sword energy one after another. Boom! 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 The flame sword flew in all directions, but they all ended up striking that yellow warrior energy from all directions. However, like eggs hitting a rock, the flame sword energies shattered and left a lot of residual fire energy in the air. The vast energy was only stopped by this attempt by a little bit. Then it continued its dash towards Fei. Shit! What is this power? Under pressure, Fei cursed as he sensed being targeted even more. As that vast energy got closer to him, blood started to leak out of Fei's nose, ears, and mouth. This power was beyond Fei's limit. It was beyond the limit of a star warrior and reached the moon-class elites. No more holding back. As he knew he couldn't handle the force, Fei bit his teeth and gave up on the barbarian mode. He instantly switched to sorceress mode and used the skill Teleport. Teleport. It could ignore all obstacles and instantly move Fei to anywhere he could see. Tink. It was a light noise. 0.0001 second before he was hit by the force, Fei's stiff body blurred. He disappeared from where he was standing and appeared behind Matt Ray's. Boom! That terrifying force from St. Petersburg finally landed on the floor of the stage with a destructive spirit. Fei thought the entire sword testing stage would be instantly destroyed to debris by the horrifying force. However, the scene he had imagined did not take place. Neither even a crack appeared on the floor of the stage. It was totally beyond his expectation. This was because the irresistible horrifying force disappeared in all a sudden when it almost struck the floor. Completely disappeared. It was as if the incredible force had never appeared before, which even did not leave a trace. It gave Fei goosebumps. What a horrifying mean of force manipulation. It was inconceivable. But right at the moment when the force was about to disappear, Fei had clearly heard a voice crying hum in his ears, which was gentle but clear. It seemed that the owner of the voice has been very shocked by the fact that Fei was able to escape from the blow. This single blow is just a little lesson to you, that the dignity of the Imperial Night Palace cannot be violated by anyone at will. Little bastard, keep it in your mind, it won't be as easy as this time in future, humph. The voice that cried just now came in Fei's ears again quickly. The words sounded like a threat. However, the whisper had given Fei an intimate feel for some reason. He could recognize that the voice definitely belonged to the same person who previously ordered the 6 execution knights to retreat with only one sentence. The voice was calm and casual without any trace of hostility, but it contained a sort of sense of natural nobility and power beyond doubt. As a result, no one was able to develop a thought of resistance or disobedience at all. This was an absolutely horrifying master warrior. As the whirring wind blew, Faye stood behind Matt Razy waiting in silence for a little while, well prepared to evacuate by using the teleport skill of the sorceress. But this force did not appear anymore after the failure of the blow. "Hey kid, why did you run behind me just now?" Matt Razy foamed with rage, expressing his dissatisfaction with Faye's behavior. It was unintentional, absolutely unintentional," Faye chuckled, thinking that, "Am I that silly to tell you the truth that I chose to hide behind you and used you as a shield just in case being killed by the angry mysterious master warrior? Who? I really didn't expect, you kid. This time you are really fucking cool." The Empire's #1 traveling poet of Zenith stared at Faye complicatedly, sincerely complimented. "Ha ha ha, at last, even a kinfeeve. The executive knight captain of Imperial Night Palace acted on you himself and failed to screw you. Fuck, except for 3 places in Zenith Empire, you can now go anywhere you like." As if responding to Matt Razy's comment, there had been thunderous cheers suddenly arising around the sword power test stage. Tens of thousands of people screamed at the same time. The huge noise was like the endless waves flooding from the horizon, wave after wave. The vast surging sound was like tidal waves flapping the distant Moro Mountains and the walls of the imperial capital. "King of Shambord! King of Shambord! King of Shambord! King of Shambord! King of Shambord!" All sorts of cheers that contained the various dialects of their own nations came together to form the same phrase. For the inferior warriors and even some minor nobles and officials from the 250 affiliated kingdoms, they were favoring King of Shambord with regard to their feelings. Although they previously thought highly of the 7th Bloodthirst Knight, almost in a prevailing way due to the accumulated influences by the Execution Knights over a long time, they were rooting for the underdog in their minds. After all, the King of Shambord was just like them. From this perspective, the King of Shambord appeared to be closer to them. For many people from the affiliated kingdoms, it was like the Shambord kind had been representing them to fight a duel. Perhaps the duel hid a lot of things they did not know, but they preferred to regard the duel as a battle between the power of the imperial nobles and the force of the affiliated kingdoms. This was a very simple feeling. There had been wind blowing from the distant Moro Mountains, while everyone shouted, "King of Shambord." Faye slightly closed his eyes and raised his arms up. He quietly switched to the paladin mode, and his body was covered by a touch of golden light. An atmosphere that was noble and benevolent beyond words softly spread out. The beautiful sunlight of early afternoon showered down and shone upon the mass silver-thick snow and Faye's body. There seemed to be only one figure left in the vast world. Faye opened his arms as if he was embracing the entire world. At this moment, this young figure that was invincible and aggressive to a crazy degree had been engraved in the hearts and souls of the people from the 250 affiliated kingdoms so firmly and deeply that he would never be forgotten. It was the effect that Faye had made on purpose. What he had wanted was to greatly impress the tens of thousands of people from the affiliated kingdoms around him with his image as a king. He did not mean to pretend to be something else deliberately. Faye firmly believed that what he had demonstrated by himself on the sword testing stage, such as the tough strength, the crazy courage to attack executive knights, and the valiant image under paladin mode, all of those would have subtle effects for sure at a certain time in the future. From now on, you are only inferior to the great emperor of the empire. King of Shambord, you have become the king of the kings. Matt Razy finally commented softly without hiding his voice. His words were clearly broadcasted as if it had been publicized deliberately. Even Matt Razy had put away the cynical expression as well. He glanced at the cheering crowd below the stage. Then he looked at Faye, whose temperament had turned into that of a noble leader. Having left his comment, the Empire's #1 poet did not hesitate anymore and gladly drank a mouthful of good wine. Then he turned into a golden light and disappeared into the distant sky. The perpetual cheers of the crowd below the stage had been surging all the time. A knight of Holy Church in black armor came up and approached Faye respectfully. He said, "Your Majesty, This is the invitation card from my lord. If your majesty have a chance in future, please come visit. Except for the symbol of Summer Palace, the black invitation card was simple and solemn in a square shape without an extra mark. The Summer Palace was the headquarters of the Holy Church at Zenit, and its image was stamped with gold gilding on the upper right corner of the front. Even for those top nobilities in the St. Petersburg, not many of them were qualified to use gold gliding invitation cards like this. Fei did not want to appear as snobby, so he accepted the invitation card after thinking for a second. The knight in black armor slightly bowed, turned around, and went down the stage. Many nobles in the VIP area stared at Fei enviously. The influence that the Holy Church had in the imperial capital was actually not weaker than that of the imperial royal family. Getting an invitation card with a gold gliding summer palace showed that the king of Chambord had drawn the attention of the bishop. Before long, the group of Holy Church knights below the stage urged their horses and left for the imperial capital. The magic carriage, which had been closely guarded, left as well. From suddenly appearing at the start of the duel to leaving freely at this moment, the mysterious person in the magic carriage had not made his or her appearance and remained adequately mysterious. As a result, it could be just guessed in a vague way that it must be an influential figure at the Holy Church, but no one knew who he or she was. The departure of the Holy Church did not reduce the crowd's crazy cheers. Instead, the cheers were getting bolder due to the lack of pressure and constraints. The crowd around the stage were starting to leave in the crazy cheers. Fei was about to leave as well, but suddenly, King of Chambord Alexander? Good indeed. Among the 250 affiliated kingdoms, you can be regarded as the number one. Although you acted a bit impulsively and offended the Imperial Night Palace, you'd be okay if you be careful afterward. A tall and handsome young man wearing an eagle helmet flew onto the stage from the VIP area by using the magic wings of wind. He nodded at Fei in a manner that was filled with arrogance, as if he had been looking down. He stared at Fei and said, "Your strength has awed me. If you are willing to serve the Dean family, the Kingdom of Chambord will be able to soar to new heights after this competition." Fei glanced at him as if he was looking at an idiot. He then turned around and just ignored this young man. "What is Dean family? How dare you act in such a way in front of me?" Fei thought. "You?" Having felt being disregarded by Fei, the young man in eagle helmet glared furiously at Fei as if he was being insulted. Along with a fragrant breeze, a graceful figure with irresistible allure showed up on the stage all of a sudden. It was Beyoncé, the most beloved daughter of the Beeg family. The beautiful young lady, who was as cold and noble as an iceberg, stared at Fei up and down. She gave others an impression that she was actually haughty and unapproachable despite her good look. She came over and said rudely, "Although you're still far away from my standards, I'd like to give you a chance. King of Chambord, you have been allowed to pursue me from now on. As long as you perform well, I might consider going on a date with you." H.A. Fei almost burst into laughter. This girl really felt too good about herself, right? He thought. Fei didn't know which noble forces in the empire these two people standing in front of him were from, but they were almost exactly the same as the Golden Sun Knight Sutton and Dillies from the hot spring. Those born with a golden spoon in their mouth all felt very good about themselves and thought that they were the center of the universe. It was stupid. Two idiots. Fei shook his head as he found them both funny and annoying. While ignoring the two people who just showed up, he waved to the crowd below the stage, and that caused a mass of responding cheers again. West in St. Petersburg, the 11 giant black towers stand loftily at the Imperial Night Palace. The main black tower was in the middle. In the spacious hall on the first level of the main tower, there were two giant statues of knights brandishing their swords on horses vividly. Each of them was at least as 100 meters tall. At the foot of the status, a stalwart figure stood backward with bright red cape spread out, which made the figure taller and greater. Out of the quietness, a sense of natural nobility and dignity spread out invisibly. "Your Highness!" 6 figures timidly kneeled down on the glossy ground. They were the 6 execution knights who just came back from one sword testing stage in the campsite 10 kilometers out of Imperial capital. "Well, second knight, are you dissatisfied with me for calling you back brashly?" The stalwart figure hadn't turned back, but his golden hair went down quietly along the bright cape till his waist. His voice contained the power to affect people's soul. "I dare not." The second knight's eyes revealed a sense of unwillingness and hatred, which however was quickly replaced by thick fear and respect. In front of this tall and great man, strong and fearless second executive knight didn't dare to have any disobedience. To others, he was the second most powerful figure in the Imperial Night Palace, but a small thought of this man in front of him would make him lose everything with no doubt. "Well, no? That means there is dissatisfaction, right?" The man standing under the statues asked lightly with his back still facing these executive knights. No. I just..." The second executive knight was suddenly too nervous to explain. "Enough. No explanation is needed. You all know my taboo. Whoever dares to manipulate the Imperial Knights will prepare to be killed. You really think I know nothing about what has happened this time?" The giant figure suddenly turned over with an exotic black mask under golden long hair. Without the appearance of his face, the pair of sky-blue pupils sent out cold lights. "It looks like the Imperial Night Palace has been quiet for too long. Someone has forgotten the bloody history happened before. The second knight, why did you make things difficult for King of Chambord and dare to break the fairness of the sword testing stage in front of tens of thousands of people? Are you going to challenge the dignity of the laws made by Emperor Yasin?" The second knight lowered his head to the ground right away with terror. "The Imperial Night Palace's reputation is damaged because of your doing." The giant shadow walks toward the gate of the tower with a series of steps with the bright red cape dragged on the ground smooth as a mirror. It looked like a river filled with boiled blood running through the hall. "The second knight, the fourth knight, and the fifth knight, you three had done things without regards to knight's code and will be sent to black prison for 30 days. The third knight, the sixth knight, and the eighth knight, you three will also be sent to black prison for 10 days. The figure covered by the bloody red cape disappeared while his voice still resonated in the hall. No one dared to question such order. "Yes, Your Highness." The six took the order with knees down. Suddenly, a red flare comes out of the ground and surrounds the six knights. The glossy and hard ground becomes soft as a swamp, and it swallowed the six knights instantly. When the red flare was gone, the six people disappear completely. All of a sudden, the whole tower had no one inside, and it was filled with unspeakable coldness and emptiness. Inside the tower, there were hundreds of stone pillars sculpted with all kinds of knights fighting with swords, telling the histories either with sadness or from a long time ago. At the center of the whole tower, the two giant status of knights could be sensed with unspeakable fairness and mercy, but the giant white swords looked like they were contaminated by something blackish like rust. On the top of the gate of the St. Petersburg, Zenith's god of war, Andrew Arshavin, quietly looked at the number 1 sword testing stage. His looked at the figure thousands of meters away. That man had his arms open as if he was embracing the world. Beside the young military leader, there was a group of solid solders under metal armors. The atmosphere filled with tension coming out of nowhere. Unexpected, really unexpected. His power has already become so terrifyingly strong. In this world, is there really such unbelievable genius? Arshavin's hands gently rubbed the cold walls with an unknown feeling running inside him. The person who led the number 1 battle legion, Ironblood Legion, and always stayed calm and emotionless suddenly had complicated feelings inside that he has never felt before. When we met the first time, he was only a small king who was barely able to step into the level of a 5-star warrior and had to survive depending on those dirty tactics like fake death. But now, he could defeat 4 execution knights by himself. Arshavin was speechless with his head up. He thought of the suggestion that the elder Princess Talisha made, and he has to admit that this wise sister of his was correct once again. Before it gets dark, have someone to send a congratulation gift to King of Chambord on winning his battle in my name. Yes, Your Highness. At the campsite 10 kilometers away, around number 1 sword testing stage. The cheers continued. The kings of affiliated kingdoms looked serious and start to leave under the protection of the guards. The shadow on the sword testing stage made them feel hopeless and tired. After this battle, everyone knows the King of Chambord would shock the whole Zenith Empire. Among the 250 affiliated kingdoms ruled by the empire, no one was able to beat this small level 6 affiliated kingdom. No, maybe there was one person. One sword, the legendary low-key prince who was secretive in his movement, and came from the number 1 affiliated kingdom, Winterside. Publicly recognized as the number 1 prince among all 250 affiliated kingdoms, this young prince had kept a low profile despite his high reputation. He had experienced more than 100 battles without one lost, especially in the battle with Spartak Empire 5 years ago at the border of Zenit Empire. He killed a 6-star warrior and an important in the royal family of Spartak Empire by himself, surrounded by more than 1,000 soldiers. This battle made one sword famous 5 years ago. Since then, he practiced by himself and become more unexpected. He battled less and less. No one knew what level he was on now. Now only one sword was able to fight with the king of Chambord. The kings of affiliated kingdoms left with different thoughts which didn't prevent others from worship the king of Chambord, especially those warriors from the affiliated kingdoms. Most of them were born into low classes, and some of them didn't even reach any star level. They lived in ice and fire and walked close to death every day in order to provide for themselves and their families. Azeroth respected those who were strong. Today, what they have seen on number 1 sword testing stage was like a battle of gods. The sky-covering energy, flaming long swords, soaring giant black flaming serpents, blood fog, dazzling sword sways, and lightning-like movements. All of these were challenging their imaginations. They had never imagined the level of strength before this. Out of the worship and passion for the winners, they wouldn't leave with their hot blood still boiling. Among them, a group of young people wearing animal skins stare Faye. Some slaves under broken robe knee on the ground praying like worshipping god of war. Some other star-leveled warriors sit cross-legged and feel the atmosphere left by the winners, hoping to get some hint and break their bondage. Among a group of people around 100 meters away from sword testing stage, a man stood there with a clean flaxen cape. He was a little slim but stood very straight. He was so quiet that neither the chaos around nor the drumbeat on the sword testing stage was able to affect him even a little. He didn't show any strangeness or surge of energy or magic, but he was like invisible to others as no one came to him to ask anything. "How dare you? Why are you ignoring me?" On the sword testing stage, Big Family's princess-like Beyoncé stared at Faye strangely, as if she was looking at a monster. "King of Chambord, I give you the last chance. If it were not for your power today, how would Dean Family accept you, the king of a small level 5 affiliated kingdom?" Dean Family's magic genius Dean Kazola points at Faye arrogantly and spoke with a threatening tone. Faye has the impulse to slap away these two spoiled kids. He's been a man of 2 lives and had seen too many silly childish people. However, he had never seen anyone who begged with arrogant faces. Are their brains out of order from long-time comfortable life? He thought. Ha! Faye suddenly found a familiar shadow under sword testing stage. The young king of Byzantine Kingdom. This young king was looking at him as if he was worshipping an idol. Faye realized that something interesting changed since their encounter last night. Faye gnawed at him with satisfaction. On another thought, Faye suddenly had the heart to fulfill this young man who shared a similar life story with himself. After switching to barbarian mode, Faye grabbed in the air, and a great amount of force suddenly pulled on the king of Byzantine. In gasps, this young king was seized onto the stage. "Nice to meet you, your majesty. I, Constantine, hasn't thanked you for your help yesterday." The young king quickly got out of the surprise and excitement as he saluted. The young king's name was Constantine. "Don't worry about it. I saw some of my past in you." Faye seemed very patient. He quickly told the young king about his experience, and it sounded just like what Constantine was going through. Both of them inherited the throne as their fathers passed away. Also, both of them had sly and greedy ministers who wanted to take over, as well as lovers and warriors who protected them. The only thing was that Faye's fate is a little bit better than Constantine's. After hearing this, the young king knew why Faye was willing to help him, and the last bit of confusion in his mind is cleared away. "Your strength is not bad, but you lack proper warrior energy training scroll and combat techniques. If you meet an opponent on your level, you would be at a disadvantage. I have created these techniques. If you are interested, I can teach you, Fei said as he took out a thin booklet from his storage space. 7-inch fist. Yeah, this is the 7-inch fist. It is something that I developed and created after I got an inspiration. This technique is fancy and powerful. If you master this technique, there would be 7 kinds of forces contained within one punch. Fire-like direct force, water-like soft force, contraction force. All of these forces would silently injure the internal organs of your enemies. Fei started to bullshit again and made up a story. However, the power of the technique was real. This so-called 7-inch fist was a knocked-off version of one of the techniques that he read in a Wuxia novel in his past life. This was a technique that Fei created based on a metal element training scroll he had and the energy pathing under his assassin mode. When Fei was testing it, he found that although this new technique could increase the strength of the trainee in a short time and it was really powerful, it had the shortcoming just like the technique he read in the Wuxia book on Earth. It would deal a lot of damage to the internal organs of the trainee as well. Due to this shortcoming, Fei hesitated and didn't let anyone close to him to training under this method. However, now it seemed like the best gift for this young king. After all, Fei wasn't such a nice person where he would give out these precious training scrolls to everyone he meets. If this young king wasn't annoying or didn't use his power evilly, Fei would try to come up with ways to eliminate the shortcoming for him in the future. Of course, Fei didn't lie about the negative consequences as he explained everything to the young man. Thank you, Your Majesty. I'm willing to learn it. I understand that I need to sacrifice things in order to become stronger. Constantine looked at the training scroll in his hand as he quickly thought through all the pros and the cons. He was very excited to know that this scroll would grant him power in a short time. If there weren't other people watching and he didn't need to still uphold his status, he would single-kneeled on the ground to show his gratitude. Fei glanced through everyone's face and saw variations of expressions. He knew what he did got people's attention, and the young king of Byzantine was receiving more attention too. From now on, it would depend on the young man's intelligence whether he would seize the opportunity or not. Since you are talking with me in front of tens of thousands of people, it might cause trouble for you in the future. Of course, the troubles could turn into opportunities too. Are you afraid? Your Majesty, I'm only here because of your generosity. I won't forget this. The young king immediately understood what Fei was trying to do. He got more grateful as he bowed. Oh, since this is the case, you can leave now. Fei waved his hand again, and an invisible force carried the king of Byzantine down the stage that was more than 50 meters tall. After getting back to his guards, the young king left with his men without any hesitation. Who was that? It seemed like he is really close to the king of Chambord. He looks like the king of another affiliated kingdom. Probably a southern kingdom. What a luck. He was spotted by the king of Chambord. With this relationship, he could soar to the sky. He is the king of Byzantine, a level 6 affiliated kingdom. Someone in the crowd recognized Constantine. I need to inform His Majesty about this. Looks like the plan we had needs to be changed. We can't get on the bad side of Byzantine. Otherwise, the king of Chambord might be offended by it. I didn't expect this. With the support of king of Chambord, even those level 1 affiliated kingdoms might not even want to stand on the other side of Byzantine. The benefits that the Byzantine kingdom will receive from this competition could be already projected. That little king is so lucky. Quickly investigate the relationship between Chambord and Byzantine. This is urgent. Haha. This is an opportunity. A great opportunity. Follow my command and quickly send gifts to Byzantine. Tell the king of Byzantine that we are willing to establish an alliance. Haha. If we can get to know the king of Chambord through this link, it would be even better. People chatted among themselves, and what just happened stuck in many people's head. The adjacent kingdoms to Byzantine who wanted to divide up its territory after this competition got scared. They were glad that they hadn't executed on their plans yet. Otherwise, before they get any benefits, they would suffer great loss. King of Chambord even dared to attack the executive knights, let alone their little kingdoms. The kingdoms who had friction and conflicts with Byzantine were concerned as well. They were thinking of ways to apologize and settle it once for all. Hey, are you even listening? On stage, the princess of Beeg family, Beyonce, got angry as she walked to Faye. With her chin high up in the air, she said with a naughty tone, "I order you to apologize to me for your rudeness. How dare you? As the king of a little level 6 affiliated kingdom, there is only so much you can do with your individual strength. How dare you reject our Dean family?" The genius from Dean family also got offended. Faye turned around and walked away without saying anything. "You! Stop!" The princess-like girl got even more infuriated after being ignored by Faye. "Haha! Great! King of Chambord, if you walk down this stage today, you will regret this decision for the rest of your life." The magic genius made another warning. "Huh!" Faye stopped and looked back. His chilling stares made the two people feel like they were staring at a lethal weapon. These two young people quickly look away to ease their nerves. "Humph!" Faye sneered. "You! Humph! King of Chambord, you are very powerful. However, you can't protect the whole kingdom yourself. You will regret being so rude to me. Any men who are rude to me would pay." Whoosh! Faye instantly dashed to Beyonce as he grabbed onto this girl's neck. Without any mercy, his iron claw-like fingers clenched her neck tightly that she opened her eyes wide and had a hard time to breathe. She dry coughed and cried, but the warrior energy inside her body seemed to be locked. She couldn't put up a fight. "How dare you? Let go of Miss Beyonce." The warriors of Beeg family were all shocked to see this. They shouted as 6 of them quickly dashed onto the stage from the VIP area. Several warrior energy that had different colored flames targeted Faye's back. Bam! 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 Faye lightly waved his hands, and an invisible force surged. As those warrior energy collided with this force, they disappeared like snow colliding onto a hot wall. Then, these guards physically smashed into this invisible wall. They gasped and whined as they fell down. Blood dyed the color of the sky red. "Idiot! In front of me, put away your arrogance and pride. If you dare to say anything else, then die." Faye's cold tone and even colder stares instantly melted away all of the girl's defense. Her haughty body collapsed first. Her body started to shiver as she felt her mind had gone blank. An unprecedented fear appeared in her mind as she looked at Faye. She didn't doubt what Faye said. She knew that this hand around her neck would instantly crush her if she said anything more. "Humph!" Faye threw this arrogant girl onto the ground, and clouds of dust were instantly sent into the air. "Also, this idiot!" Faye turned around and stared at the genius of Dean family. Faye didn't hide his murderous spirit, and this young man felt like the sky was collapsing on top of his head. Didn't matter how hard he tried to use his magic power, he couldn't defend against it. Soon, he was forced to kneel down on the ground with his hands propping his body up. He couldn't move at all. At this moment, this magic genius realized how powerful this king of Chambord was. This man was thousands of times more powerful when he was the one experiencing it. After all, this didn't occur to him when he was watching. He had a feeling that this king could turn him into a pile of minced meat if the king just stared at him harder. "If you guys try to bother me more, your lives won't be more precious than the stray dogs." Faye got ferocious as he looked at these two young people as well as other people in the VIP area. Didn't matter who they were. They didn't dare to look back at Faye in the eyes.